Good evening. Welcome to the Yiboneh Beit Midrash. Welcome home to Torah. We have a fantastic plan, outline to cover tonight. Chapter 47 in Genesis. We're going to deal with, again, fundamental issues. And I'm going to encourage you, I'm not sure you're aware of this, but on our website we have the Hebrew sheets that you can follow. So you could click on those and you can print them out. This class is also to help us learn Hebrew, right? So I'll repeat certain words that are very, let's say, very usable words, right? You'll hear them. Last night during the Sima Shas, I would say half of the speakers, half of what they spoke about was in Hebrew, but it was, I'm not going to say easy Hebrew, but Hebrew that is fundamental. You need to know these words to follow a class, to follow a shiur, to follow a lecture. So it's good to hear them and then instantaneously hear the translation. So that's what I'll try to do, point out certain words. So if we go to chapter 47, and we're going to verses 8 through 9, we're talking about when Yaakov and the brothers have now come down to Egypt to settle. Okay, what does that mean? We've dealt with this idea before about a ger. Right? We actually spoke about a few weeks ago. I labeled it part 1. Maybe we'll label this part 2. So, bli neder, that means no promises, if I can remember. I'll put the link in the description box below for that previous shiur, so you'll get a better understanding. Hopefully, yeah, go ahead.
How come they went there to settle and not to sojourn?
This is what we're going to talk about tonight. Exactly, Chaim. Thank you. So, if you just read verse 7, for example, we'll start there. Then Yosef brought Jacob, his father, and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. So this is already the fact that he blesses him. And Pharaoh then said to Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? It's really that 8th verse we're going to deal with, but let's just read the Hebrew. V'yaveh Yosef es Yaakov aviv. Right, so Yosef brought Yaakov his father, Yamidehu lifnei Paro, and he brought him to stand in front of Paro. V'yivarech Yaakov es Paro, and Yaakov blesses Paro. V'yomer Paro el Yaakov. Now this is the catch, right? Pharaoh sees this man and he says, "How old are you?" Now let me ask you a question. Unless you were like 18 to 23, that question should bother you, right? So, what got his attention? Why would that be the first question you ask somebody? How old are you? Not like, would you like a drink of water? I see you came a long distance. How are your accommodations? Did you get much sleep last night? Was the plane or the caravan, the camel ride pleasant? How old are you? That's the first thing the Pharaoh asked him. How old are you? So he must have made an impression. The question is, what kind of impression did he make? And we're going to deal with that. So he says, Kama yimei shnei chayecha. How many of the days of your years of life, right? How old are you? That's really what he's asking. How many are the days of the years of your life? And what did Yaakov say to him? Yaakov says to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojourns, right? Sojourns, like if you're reading just English, you would never really get it, right? So in Hebrew, it is migurei. He's telling him the years of his sojourns, not the years of his life, not the years of his settlement, but the years of his ger, the years of his wandering. And it's more than wandering. It's an uncomfortable being a stranger. Right, that's what a ger means. To wander around a little bit, not knowing where you're going to sleep tomorrow. Shloshim u'ma'at shana, 130 years. And then he says, ma'at v'royim hayu, yimei shnei chaya. So not only am I 130 years old, but the days of the years of my life have been few and miserable. Maybe, just maybe, this is why Pharaoh asked him. Right? Pharaoh asked him, how old are you? because maybe there was something about the way he presented himself. This was the answer he was looking for. I mean, this is something that he saw. He was not looking good. What does that mean? And it came out in his words. His words were, my days have been few and miserable, and they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers, meaning what? Yitzchak lived 180, I'm sorry, right? And Abraham lived 175, and he's 130, and he's already reaching or feeling like he's towards the end. How old did he live? 147, right? He lived 147? Okay. But right now he's 130. He's got 17 years left to go. And he says, V'lo hisigu es yemei shnei chaya avosai bimei migureihem. Again, that word, migureihem, sojourns. And they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers in the days of their sojournings. Again, Yaakov blesses Pharaoh. So I'm not sure what it means that the fact that he blesses him twice, but we're going to deal with the blessing that he gave Pharaoh. We'll talk about that. And then he left Pharaoh's presence. Divarek Yaakov es Paro v'yetze milifnei Paro. Okay, so he blesses him again. Okay. So the first thing the Kli Yakar is going to point out to us is Lifi Shehugad LaParo, since when we say, how old are you? Since he already told Paro, Sheka'asher bo Yaakov haya nilus oila liraglav. Now, we think he was looking bad, and Pharaoh is like, dude, how old are you? We're going to see a whole nother level. When Yaakov is in the presence of Pharaoh, the Nile rises. Everywhere Yaakov goes, there's a blessing. And so now that the Nile has risen, you can imagine, they don't have rain, they just have the Nile, and the Nile, you have to dig these canals, and then you could put water into wherever you want to go. But if the water rises, this is really lush. It's like the best thing could ever happen to you. So now he's asking, how old are you? He wants to know, how long is this blessing going to be around? So the Nile was going up, and Paro felt blessed, right? He blessed him. So he felt very blessed. He wants to know how long this bracha, this blessing, is going to be around for. Paro sameach al zeh ma'od. Right? This must be that Pharaoh would be very happy that this happened. Correct? V'chashav. And what was Pharaoh thinking? Shekol zman Yaakov chai, that the entire time that Yaakov will be alive, ya'aleh hanilus l'raglav la'olam, that always will be. That blessing would sustain itself, that the Nile would reach its peak, and there would always be water. The yashke et pnei adama, and the fields would receive the water that they need. The kashero es Yaakov. Oh, however, when he saw Yaakov, hinehu dal the kachush the rakot basar ken mishpat zikeni. He was looking very weak and thin, and skinny and scanty, and not a whole lot of muscle, just like the way older people are. Okay. Chashav Paro. So what was Pharaoh thinking? Shevadai, that certainly hu muflag bizikna. He has certainly reached his peak. That's it. He's really old. He didn't get much more time left on this earth. Vayomo machar yuma yamut. And just a matter of days. That's how old this guy was looking. He was not very happy. So that now we have a contradiction. If the Midrash Tanchuma tells us that when he saw him and he saw that the water of the Nilus of the Nile rose, so he should be happy. Here it says he wasn't happy. Or how could he be happy if he doesn't expect this blessing to be around very long? If that's the case, then why would the Egyptians be happy, which the Midrash certainly implied? Ki b'moiso yachzor nilus l'makomo. Certainly, if, God forbid, whenever Yaakov would die, the Nilus, the Nile River, would certainly go back to its original lower level. So when he asked, that's why he asked, Al Kain She'elo, Kami Yemei Chayecha, how old are you? This is exactly the reason he asked. V'heishiv lo. So this was his answer to him. Yemei Shnei Megurai Ma'at V'roim. That the day, right, few and bad have been the days of the years of my life. His Kirlashon Megure, Chaim asked, why does it say sojournings? Why is the word ger or gur being used? To tell us, Shalom Mechamat Rov Yamim Hu Kol Chachachush V'Raza. Yaakov was saying, it's not because I'm old, per se, that I'm looking old, but rather, Ki imachmas pachad umagur misaviv. But rather it's on account of the fear that I had lived through in my life and had been wandering around, living around as a nomad. Ki et asher yigurti yavoli. It's on account of my being a ger, being a wanderer, not really settling down, that this occurred to me, this happened to me, this physical state of looking stately and old. V'kametzaros tzururos v'am tachotai. And how much, meaning it's an expression of a lot of pain and suffering, is in my saddlebag, is in my backpack, is in my purse that I've been carrying around with me. Allah hayu kulana kol meshek zman shloshim u'mat shana. And all of that I carried around for 130 years. As we saw, the verse said, Ma'at v'roim hayu yimei chaya v'lo hisigu eshnei chayei avosai. Right? Few and bad were the days of the years of my life, and I have not reached the years of my forefathers. And it also says the word sojournings a second time. V'yesh li od tikva lagia leperek abba. But Yaakov had, let's say, hope. He thought there's still time. I could still reach to 175, 180 years old. I'm only 130. Shohayachai shmonim u'mat shana. As we know that Yitzhak lived 180. Afal pi shegam hema haya lehem migur misaviv. They also lived as gerim. They also lived as sojourners. Mikom makom harichu yamim. Nevertheless, they had a long life. We're talking about 30, 40 years longer than he was at that moment. That's why he himself mentioned the word migurehem at the end of that verse. I think it's verse 10, probably the end of verse 9. Gam kalpe avotav, also regarding his forefathers, as it says, right? And they have not reached the days of the years of the lives of my forefathers and the days of their sojournings. So he had hope. He was also looking forward to living a long life, perhaps of 180. So you guys have asked and you've wondered, so how could Yaakov himself use these negative words to describe his life? He's a tzaddik, right? At the famous stories of Rav Zusha, right? A tzaddik is never looking at his own life as miserable or painful or bad, yet these are the words that Yaakov himself described, right? Ma'at v'rayim. So I think, and it could be the lessons that we're supposed to learn from it, meaning we're actually learning that we should not use these negative words, right? The years were cut off because of this. He didn't live as long as he could have, perhaps, right? So this is a lesson for us to think positively and speak positively. As one of my rebbeim always told me, just because you think something doesn't mean you should say it. And even if you say it, doesn't mean you should write it down. And even if you write it down, it doesn't mean you should publish it. So we have to be very careful with our words. So the lesson that Chazal throughout the Medrash and the Midrashim are telling us to be very careful with our words. Okay, now we're going to skip to verse 21 because now we're talking about.
And
go ahead.
And he's also Haggard from Yosef. Not know where his son is. That's what.
Okay, look, we did discuss this idea of the Rogesh Shel Yosef. He was looking for a moment of shalva. We spoke about this, I mentioned already a few weeks ago. And God does not want, a tzaddik should understand that this world is not about shalva. Shalva is tranquility, peace, and harmony. We're talking about the world to come, we're talking maybe the time of Mashiach, but in this world, there is, let's call challenges. Even the word Yisurim, right? I like the word challenges. They're going to be experiencing lots of challenges. There's a battle, right? We have, like you mentioned earlier before the shir, right? There's a battle going on, a jihad, a internal battle with the Yetzer Hara. So the greater tzaddik, the more righteous you are, does not make that battle any less. Okay? You're going to always have it and may even be stronger, but you're also stronger. It's always going to be a 50-50 fight. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. So now in verse 21, and he transferred the populace to the cities from one end of the boundary of Egypt to its other end. So Yosef is in charge, and why is Yosef doing this to the Egyptians? Right? We know, and we'll see it, that he put the Jews in Goshen, and they experienced, I'm not going to call it tranquility, but they experienced a ghetto lifestyle where they did not intertwine or intermingle, and therefore they could not assimilate with the Egyptians. Okay, but in the meanwhile, Yosef is the viceroy, and he takes, we'll call it the transfer of people. He's transferring people from the different cities. He's creating major chaos, if you ask me. Why? Why would he do this? So let's see, let's look at the Rashi real quick. Rashi says on this verse, Joseph transferred them from city to city so that they would remember that they have no more share in the land. We're talking about the Egyptians. And he settled those of one city in another. Now, Scripture did not have to write this except to let you know about, it's a praise to Joseph. This is somehow praiseworthy that Joseph did this. Why else would the Torah tell us? That he intended to remove the stigma from his brothers. Remember, they were living in Canaan, they had no food, right? So they come down. What would you call them? Refugees? There's a status. It's not a high status to be and they weren't political refugees. I think a political refugee is a higher status than a, what do you call it, economic refugee, right? So they were economic refugees. It's a very low status. We'll even call them exiles. Okay, let's use that word. That's the word he's going to use. So that the Egyptians would not call them exiles. We'll see the Hebrew. Let's see how the Kliyakar explains it. Perish Rashi, as Rashi explains, lahasir cherpa me'al achiv. In order to remove the shame from the brothers, he moved the Egyptians to different cities. Shelo yomru goylim hema. So the Egyptians would not say to the Jews or consider the Jews exiles or refugees. Now guess what? The Kliyakar is not satisfied. Are you kidding me? He says, V'racholku. This is such a far out idea. This is distance from logic. Why? Sheba'avur to'elet katan zeh yibabel Yosef kol haaretz. Just for the benefit to the brothers, so that the Egyptians might not call them refugees, you're going to uproot the whole country of Egypt and make a bilbul, make such a mess and chaos? Everyone's uprooted. It sounds crazy. V'od shelo yikare goyle v'sura ki'im mi shehaylo nachla sada v'kerem v'gola mehem. Not only that, the only gullus that is going to happen, the only exile that's going to really happen, is going to be for the Egyptians who had real property. The Jews just got there. What kind of property did they have? So they weren't uprooted. So if all the Egyptians are uprooted and the Jews are not uprooted, I mean, let's just say before the idea of uprooting the Egyptians, the Jews aren't even uprooted within Egypt. So they didn't have real estate that they were uprooted from. Yaakov had not yet settled anywhere. The kol avos hayu gerim. In fact, Abraham, Isaac, and we're talking about Jacob, all the avos basically were gerim. They didn't really settle in an agricultural sense. Ki kavar hutchal hagerus mishnolad Yitzchak. You know when this exile began? Already from the very day that Isaac was born. Okay, Isaac was born, let's say on Pesach, 400 years before we left Egypt. Okay? And even we already said before that the Avos made sure, that our forefathers made sure that they never settled in any place, so that the chov, the obligation of being a foreigner in a foreign land, or let's say gerim, wanderers in a land that wasn't theirs, would come out as quick as possible. The yoter nachon lefaresh, and it's more proper to explain kol habilbul hazeh. This is the way the Kli Yakar is now going to explain why did Yosef, remember I asked you guys, correct me, why did Yosef make such a bilbul, such chaos and craziness over this? Because Kli Yakar is convinced that's not really a good enough reason that they were, let's say, not enough, at least on the surface, that the Egyptians might call them refugees. And he's going to go deeper into it. In Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 19, this is one of the 613 commandments, by the way. It says, "You shall love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. V'ahavtem es hager, you shall love the convert, the proselyte, the ger, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ki kol mi shelo yager miyamav." Now, this is going to be a very strong statement. This statement should never leave your minds, ever. Ever. And I think this is one of the reasons why, and I'll say it now, many of our mitzvahs are tied into the fact that we were slaves in Egypt and now we're free. Right? Not just Pesach, but imagine the Shema, right? Kiddush, Shabbos, how many more mitzvahs? So many mitzvahs that we do this is for you to do because you were strangers, you were slaves in Egypt. Anyone, this is the statement, anyone who was not experiencing being a stranger in their lifetime, Eino margish bitzaru shel ger, cannot be empathetic, has never felt the pain that a ger would feel. Ve'eino chas al nefesh hager, and that person would never feel, he wouldn't have any pity towards the soul of a convert. Guys, this is like fundamental, right? This is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, maybe living in Israel, we don't meet so many potential converts, right? We only meet them afterwards. And afterwards, you have to, they're regular Jews. Guess what? There's still a mitzvah. There's an additional mitzvah to love them. Why do we love them? Because we feel sorry for them that they were strangers? Or we have to be empathetic? The real reason is because they made a major decision to enter the covenant, and they went from outside the covenant, and they now are protected by the kanfei Shechina, by the wings of the divine presence. Their own parents are Abraham and Sarah. We are like 60 generations away. We can call Abraham and Sarah our great grandparents, and they're like, that's my Ab and that's my Ima. Like, they made a major decision, right? Uprooted everything. So that's really why. But there's another thing. We also have to love them because we have to somehow, it's very important that we have to actually know what it's like. And guess what? Let's say we were very, not spoiled, let's just say we had a really good upbringing, I would call privileged, and we never experienced anything. You have to imagine what it's like. You have to. I mean, he's saying anyone who never experienced it would never know how to relate to it. But someone who actually did experience it, being a stranger, he'll know exactly what the ger is experiencing. Remember the major principle. Rabbi Akiva said it. Love your neighbors yourself. How do you fulfill love your neighbors yourself? Don't do what you don't like done to you, don't do to someone else. This is like number one in Derech Eretz. Derech Eretz means manners, character development, right? We have to always think, if I was standing on the other side, is this how I would want to be talked to, right? Usually, I have to work on myself. Okay, so this is what we have. This is all about the work of being a religious Jew. Do not, whatever you do not like, do not do it to anybody else. Al kain ha'avir Yosef ha'am la'arim. This is why Yosef moved the Egyptians around from the different cities. Kedeshu kulam gerim ba'aretz lo lehem. So they would all feel. We're talking about the Egyptians, not the Jews. The Egyptians should feel it. Kamosh ne'emar, just like it says by us in the Brit, Bein HaBetarim, the covenant between the pieces. It's in number 4 on the source sheets, Genesis 15, verse 13. When God said to Abraham, you shall surely know that your seed will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. They will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. And we already know we were only in Egypt for 210 years. As we said, the Avos themselves experienced this giur, this ger, this life of a wanderer. Look at Rashi on that verse. It doesn't say in the land of Egypt, right? God could have said, you're going to be strangers in the land of Egypt. The verse doesn't say that. It says in a land that's not yours, or that's not theirs. So it doesn't say Egypt. That's how we know also it's part of if you can make the simple mathematics, that was from the time that Isaac was born. And we see that Abraham was sojourned. He was a ger, and also Yitzhak was a ger. You have different verses. Chapter 21, verse 34, and chapter 20, verse 1. And you can even look in Psalms. It says Yaakov sojourned in the land of Ham, right? So that's in 47, verse 4. Okay. So ki hatoshavim yu ba'aretz lo lehem, that the citizens of Egypt will be in a land, right, in the cities that it's not theirs. But also we're talking about even when we're in Egypt. Kedei sheyargishu b'tzaro shel hager. The whole point is that everyone should be sympathetic and understanding what it's like. The yachaliyot shegam Rashi neskavin lezeh. It's very possible that was exactly what Rashi meant. Kizuhi cherpa sheyacharpum lomar. This is exactly the shame that Rashi was referring to. That Yosef was trying to save his brothers from the shame, golim atem, that the Egyptians would call the Jews, the Israelites, refugees or wanderers. V'lu chayfetz Hashem b'tovatchem, lama atem golim. So if the Egyptians would say, doesn't God care about you? He brought you down here, right? You're telling us that you guys have the answer to the world's problems. You know God, and look at you. You guys are gerim. You guys are in exile. Im kain muter lahora lechem. Then it would be permissible for them to treat us badly, right? Because that's how they would think. If God, your God, is so good to you, look what He did to you. So if He could give you harm, we can give you harm, right? This is the way a non-Jew might think about the Jewish people. If you're in Gullus, God I think the Christians do this all the time. I hate to bring it up. But if you were cut off and excised, like mamish, like cut off from God, and we have a relationship with God, so we follow God, so we'll do the same thing. You deserve the anti-Semitism you get. But that's really not the case. The case is that when the Jews were promised the everlasting relationship, and when you're good, so then there'll be a bracha. And when you're not good, I'm going to call it a withholding of the bracha. That's what a curse is. It's a withholding of the bracha. Okay? So, but that's a relationship that's still there. That's all it is. It says it's everlasting. It's eternal. Okay? There's no such thing as a New Testament. That relationship, you know how many people went through the Holocaust and said, this is written in the Torah, and the blessings and the curses? Exactly what God predicted would happen is happening right now. And they didn't leave their Judaism. And there are unfortunately Jews who did leave because they saw it as if that's what it is, I'm not interested. Not necessarily they didn't believe in God anymore, they had a big problem with God. Okay, and they have to work that out. So that's what the Egyptians might say. And this is why Yosef moved them around. Al Kain Avirosam Yosef La'arim. That's why Yosef moved them from one city to another. Kadesha Yochlu Lahashiv Lehem. So that we could respond, so there would be a response to these people. Gamatem Hachaletem Kimono. That you guys are just as, let's say, ill or debased as we are. So there would be, I don't know if it's sympathy at this point, or, the Egyptians are certainly not any better than us, right? If we would be considered exiles or economic refugees, so they also had the same experience, and therefore we would not be debased. Okay, so Davar Acher, Lechach Ha'avirotam Yosef La'arim. An alternative explanation. Now, alternative explanation does not mean we're getting rid of anything we said before. We're going deeper. Okay, so if you look in Genesis 47:11, Yosef settled his father and his brothers, and he gave them property in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had mandated, right? V'yitein lehem achuzah be'eretz Mitzrayim. But Rashi says right away, that's called Goshen. This is where they settled. So if you look in Genesis 47 verse 27, and Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they acquired property in it. And they were prolific and multiplied greatly. So that's the verse we're looking at. When it says, Yachazu bo. So Yaakov and his sons, they settled. Right? They settled in Goshen. In order for them to have some type of a real estate hold and inheritance in the land. Now there is to be worried. This is what Yaakov saw to be concerned about. Yosef saw to be concerned about. He wanted to make sure that his brothers were going to be safe, that perhaps there would be a future tyrant, such as a Pharaoh. A Pharaoh would arise, a melech aritz, some type of a despot or pressing leader, v'yidrosh me'al sefer divrei hayamim, who would then look into the chronicles. What chronicles are we talking about? The real estate office. Who owns what properties? Shel kol ir v'yoshveha, that had the register of all the properties in the cities and who resides there. Ashar alav ketuv zikron kol karka shel mihu. Right? It's written in there who the land belongs to. V'lo yimtza liyisrael shum zchut, and he'll discover those Jews, they're foreigners. They don't really belong here, and they don't have any merit to any piece of property from a long time ago. Shahil avosam benachalot. Right? They don't own anything. And not one of the Jews can make a claim anywhere in the land of Egypt that this belongs to us, came through our forefathers. V'garshu mimenu, and then this despotic king would drive out or deport the Jews from there. Al kain ha'avir kulam la'arim. That's why Yosef went ahead and put all the Egyptians in different places, in the different cities. Till each one of them did not have a holding in their own family property. And Israel, the Jewish people, would be just like them. That all of them would also dwell in the places without any, let's say, the power of possession. They didn't have any deeds, they didn't have any real holding, so the Egyptians would also be in the same place, and therefore if an evil king would arise trying to put the Jews in their place. So Yehud asked a fantastic question, right? In a certain sense, wasn't the Medrash and the text itself talks about it. Yosef sold all the existing food for property. In other words, it was during the 2 years of famine, there was supposed to be 7, but it ended after 2 years, after Yaakov and the brothers came down. And we're going to see a little bit more involved in the 5 existing years of non-famine. But during the years of famine, those 2 years, that when there was no food, remember Yosef had told everyone we're going to put away during the 7 good years. So during those first 2 years of famine, he was able to sell. People had nothing, absolutely nothing. He said, I'll sell it to you for your properties. But those properties were not sold to him, it was sold to Pharaoh. Okay, so that became like institutionalized state property. It didn't belong to, so basically Yehuda was asking, that was like genius idea, and it always bothered me, this Jew gives us a really bad name, taking advantage. So now we understand what he actually did, that it was for the sake of not having his brothers be shamed. So he moved everyone around. They were not in these cities in their own ancestral plots. Okay, so now we're going to go to verse 23. And it says like this. Yosef said to the people, look, I have acquired you this day with your land for Pharaoh. Here is seed for you, sow the land. Now just imagine this for a second, right? We just got done speaking it out, how Yosef convinced everyone, all the Egyptians, to sell them the land in exchange for food, right? So now he has all their land, right? They're now sharecroppers. That's what the correct terminology is. And the Egyptian economy is now going to make a big boom based on everybody being enslaved, so to speak. Including the Egyptians themselves.
The richest country in the world. The whole world came to it. It's the richest country in the world now. Yep.
So let's look at number 7 on the source sheet. And I'll read the next verse as well. And it shall be concerning crops, that you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and the remaining 4 parts shall be yours. Proceed your fields, for your food, for those in your houses, and for those among your young to eat. So the Hebrew is ha lechem zera. Behold, here he's giving, very nice. He's giving us seed. That's so sweet, right? Very nice. So look at Rashi. The word hey, he says equivalent to the word behold. Okay, we're going to see a bit different. It's going to be really interesting. So look at the Kliyakar. Natan lehem zera al chame shanim asher hayu roim liyot shnei ra'av. He gave them enough for the 5 years so that they can plant, even though there was supposed to be a famine. Remember, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. Those 7 years of famine never happened. 2 years passed. Yaakov, the brothers come, and everything's flourishing. Even the Nile has been raised. Unbelievable. How can you have a famine? There's so much water, abundant water, and there you have it. So he gives them seed, and he gives it to them enough for the 5 years. Okay, upasach hara'ah b'schut Yaakov, and the famine ended in the merit of Yaakov because Yaakov came. That's why it says hey lechem zara. The word hey is a hey aleph, but that's how you spell out the word hey. It's, in other words, hey is the number 5, correct? So hainu al chamei shanim. It's, in other words, in the verse, I'm giving you 5 years worth of seed. Hey is 5 years worth of seed. And the Mekubalim Amru, do you remember we spoke about the name Yud and Hey, right? One of God's holy name is Yah. Yud, Hey. The Yud is representative of the masculine. God created, right, the world with the Yud and the Hey. There's masculine aspects in this world. And then there's the Hey aspect, that's called the feminine aspect. And what is so feminine? Listen to what he says. Listen to what the mystics say. It's from the letter Hey, Achrona Shebeshem, Nimshachu Kol Hatolados, V'Kol Davar Oisei Pri. That I'm going to call it feminine, right? That last letter Hey of the name of God draws forth from it all produce or all things that are fruitful and anything that can create more fruit. And that is for sure women. But we're not talking about women here. We're talking about the fruit. Kedei liyot hadavar lizikaron. This was all in order that they should remember this. Tziva lehem sheyitnu chomesh leparo, in order for them to give 1/5. That's what the verse says, that they gave 1/5 to Pharaoh. Ki im arba yadot. I'm sorry, 1 second. I skipped something. No. Arba yadot yilahem, whereas 4 parts would remain with them. Okay, so look at the verse again, and we're talking about chapter 47, verse 24. And you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and the remaining 4 parts should be yours. V'od remez, yesh od remez. There's a further hint in this. Shekol zeh haya b'zchut Yaakov. We mentioned this was all in the merit of Jacob, our forefather. K'moshi Yaakov lo achol mikol asher lo kim arba yadot. Whatever Yaakov had, he only ate himself 4/5 of whatever he had. V'chelek hamishi hifrish legavoa, and what he gave over was 1/5, 20%. What do we know about the word tithing? Tithing is 10%, correct? So listen to this idea. When it's in halacha, you're not allowed to give more than 20% if it's going to change your lifestyle drastically. If you're a multi-millionaire, whatever, you can give much more. It's not going to affect your life, right? But 20% is what is considered, we call the gag, right? That's like without having to ask questions or manipulate the change of your lifestyle. So if you go to chapter 28, verse 22, that's in Genesis number 8 on the sheet. Right, this stone which I placed as a monument shall be a house of God, and everything you give me I will surely tithe to you. V'chol asher titein li aser asirenu lach. The word aser, which is the word 10 or tithe, is used double. There's a double language. Why is there a double language? Shnei ma'asros, because you give the tithe twice. V'isura basra, v'isura kamadami. The first tithe and the second tithe are very similar, meaning the double language here is to tell you to do it twice, which is chomesh, which is 1/5, which is 20%. Kach kol ha'oichlim b'schuto hitil alehem netinazu. Maybe this is a general statement. We're going to talk about it specifically in the merit of Jacob. But anyone who eats anything, anybody consumes something in the merit of someone else, would like to give something in his merit. Shel churach arba yidot, and therefore you'll consume 4/5. V'afrishu chomesh, and you'll give away the 20%, the 5th, to in the merit of. V'chein b'tchila harav. That's why in the very beginning of the famine. Look in chapter 41, verse 34. It says over there, let Pharaoh do this and appoint officials over the land and prepare, we're going to see the word prepare, the land of Egypt during the 7 years of plenty. What does it mean to prepare? Look at the Hebrew, v'chimesh es eretz Mitzrayim. It's a very strange language. V'chimesh. What does it mean? So, I lost my place. Here we are. Shalachach mikulam chelek hamishi. So we're talking about Yosef again. He was taking and making sure they gave over 20%. Kisham tziva Hashem es habracha. This is in general, that God will command the blessing. As it says in Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22. The double language, aser ta'aser, you shall surely tithe. In English, when it says you shall surely do something, look in the Hebrew. The Hebrew is usually a double language. In other words, when you see the double language, there's an emphasis that it surely should be done. But don't go by the English. If there's a double language of ma'aser, of tithing, it means a chomesh, it means a 5th. Ubomuter linasois es Hashem. And guess what? This is a place, you're not allowed to test God. Except here, in giving more than the 10%, you will be blessed. It's a guarantee God says, test me. Go ahead. Test me. Make sure to give and give a little more, and you'll get. And you can look in Malachi, that's the last of the prophets, chapter 3, verse 10. Did I put it on here? It's on page 4, number 11. Bring the whole of the tithes, Heviu es kol hamaser, he says, into the treasury, so that there be nourishment. There may be nourishment in my house, and test me now therewith. Ubachanuni na, test me, says the Lord of hosts, to see if I will not open for you the sluices of heaven. What's a sluice? Arubos, the windows of heaven, and pour down for you blessings until there is no room to suffice for it. Is that beautiful, guys? There you go. Okay, now let's move on to verse 27. And this is interesting because, right, Israel settled in the land of Egypt in the region of Goshen. They acquired property in it, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly. And then the next verse says, Yaakov lived. Keep that in mind. Yaakov lived. Okay. So the Yeshev Yisrael, this is one of Chaim's original questions, correct, Chaim? Yeah. It says that Israel settled. We're talking about the whole time that you should be like a ger. You should have this attitude of not a permanence in this world. This world is transient and it's not permanent. Yet Yisrael settled in the land of Egypt in the place called Goshen. Kol pasuk zeh ashmat b'nei Yisrael medaber. It's giving and attributing guilt to the Jewish people. For what? For settling? Remember, God promised them. He decreed upon them at the Brit Bein Batarim, at the covenant between the pieces, that you will be strangers in a strange land, a land that is not yours. Not just you, also your seed. That's in Genesis 15, verse 13. And what was the problem? That Israel wanted to settle in a place that they were not supposed to settle in, that they should have been strangers. Like we darshaned out by Yaakov in the Yeshev Yaakov in chapter 37, verse 1, which we discussed at length. Bikesh Yeshev B'Shalva. He wanted to dwell in tranquility. Koftzolav Ragzo She Yosef. That the anger of Yosef, whatever that means, that, remember, Yaakov himself had not honored his own parents for 22 years. Okay, so somehow or another, when push came to shove, where he wanted to be, Yaakov wanted to settle himself in tranquility, all of a sudden now he's lost Yosef for 22 years. Kach hapasuk ma'ashimam al yeshiva zu. So too, this verse is attributing guilt because of this yeshiva, because of this permanent dwelling. Shebikshu achiz ba'aretz v'lo lehem. They wanted a stronghold, a real estate, a holding in a land that did not belong to them. V'lo kach amru al Paro. But when they came down, this is not what they said to Pharaoh. Look in Genesis 47, verse 4. Over there it says, and they said to Pharaoh, we have come to sojourn in the land. Chaim, when they came down, they came as gurei. Look in the Hebrew. V'yamru el Paro legur ba'aretz banu. That's why we came, only to be gerim. Melamed, what does this teach you? Shemitchila la yardu lehashkeya shama. When they originally went down, they had no intent of ever remaining there and being drowning, let's say, sunken into this outside the land of Israel. Ela Lagor, but only to be like someone who's just sleeping the night. Kimidayar beidayar. V'akshav chazru midivrehem, but they retracted, they went back on their words. They originally came down as gerim, but now it's yeshvu. Now they changed the whole tune. They wanted to be the most patriotic, best Egyptian, better than the Egyptians, more than the Egyptians, like in America, right?
So, like everywhere.
Like everywhere we go. The kol kach nishtaku shama ad shelo ratzu litzeis mitzrayim. They became so engrossed, so embedded, so sunken in Egypt until the point they didn't want to leave. Until God Himself had to take them out with a strong hand. That's we wanted to be Egyptians. Do you understand what happened here? During the 3 days of darkness, 4/5 of the Jews were killed by a plague. Hashem makes sure that they didn't leave. They didn't leave Egypt. 4/5. If you want to just check out, you go to Exodus chapter 10, verse 22.
That's why it was done in the night, Rabbi. So the Egyptians wouldn't see us burying our dead, right?
Correct.
So there also was something beautiful there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's okay. But Hashem is concerned, just like Yosef was concerned that the Egyptians would, look at us shamefully. So too, can you imagine Hashem? These Jews, these stubborn Jews, do not want to leave Egypt. 4/5 never made it out. So He takes them out in the 9th plague of darkness. Okay, and what happens? So it's dark. The Egyptians can't see anything. If the Egyptians would have seen the Jews die, and it's a significant amount, they would never get the message. They had no idea that 4/5 were gone. So if they would have seen the Jews die, what do you think they would think about the 9th or 10th plague? Or they'll say the 10th plague.
You guys are taking worse than us.
Exactly. So once you take up the Makos personally, it was all about us. Maybe you get the message, meaning the Egyptians. But if they're also being affected, it would ruin the whole message. So Hashem took care of it during the 9th plague of darkness. So I mentioned, go to Exodus chapter 10, verse 22. What do you see there? It says, Moses stretched forth his hand toward the heaven. There was a thick darkness throughout the land of Egypt for a 3-day period. And Rashi over there says, so over there, that there were many Jews who were evil. What's considered evil in God's eyes? You don't want to leave Egypt. And they were killed they died during these 3 days. That the Egyptians wouldn't see their downfall. The Yomru. And they would end up saying, if they saw the Jews die, Afheim loikin kamonu. They got lashed or hit just like we did. And then they would never. But I want to show you something. Because the word V'yamesh, darkness, is so hard, it was so thick that it could be felt. Bob, I think you heard this before from me. V'yamesh, Vav, Yud, Mem, Shin. There's an aleph missing. Rashi points out there's an aleph missing. Aleph is the letter 1, correct? So if you take, this darkness was so thick it could be felt. Can you imagine how thick it was? For 3 days the Egyptians couldn't move. They couldn't move, it was so thick. They couldn't see, but they couldn't move. If you take 1 away from each one of these letters, Vav, Yud, Mem, Shin, what's Vav minus 1? Rashi says there's an aleph that should be there. He proves that all other places in the Chumash, when it's so thick it can be felt, there should be an aleph. The aleph is missing in this word. He points it out. Very nice. So he says it's chaser aleph. It's missing 1. What's Vav minus 1? Hey. What's Yud minus 1?
9.
Tet.
Tet.
What is Mem minus 1? Lamed. And what is Shin minus 1? What does it spell? Hey, Tet, Lamed, Reish. That's what it spells.
It's hard to go and say.
It spells Hitler, Yamak Shemo V'Zikram. Should rot. His name should be erased. Okay, so now move on. And in the end of that verse, right? The Yifru the Yirba mode. They were fruitful, multiplied greatly. Usmichle, and right away it says V'chi Yaakov. Yaakov lived. So what's going on? In other words, this is a closed parsha, by the way, right? So you don't even have a space. So, and Yaakov lived. Ramaz, what does this hint to? B'smichut zeh, in this proximity. L'masha amru Chazal, it says Yaakov lo meit. It says Yaakov never died. So you see that they grew, they were fruitful, they multiplied. And then Yaakov lived. Umakshe, now there is a difficulty. What's the difficulty? Wasn't Yaakov embalmed and mummified? The Torah itself says it, right? In Genesis chapter 50, verse 2. V'chi b'kdi chanatu chanatoya, right? Wasn't he mummified?
That he was buried alive.
Thank you very much. So the answer is Mikra Anidorish. If you look at Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 10, Al Tira O of the Yaakov, right? You have to look at the whole verse, but basically, don't fear my servant Yaakov, for behold, I'm saving you from distant places and your descendants. There's a concept, Yaakov's being saved. This is Jeremiah. Jeremiah. He lived like a long time after Yaakov. He's saying, my servant Yaakov and his descendants, he's going to save from captivity. Maki Shulazaro. So in that verse, there's a strong connection between Yaakov and his seed. Mazar b'chayim, just as his seed is alive in the time of Jeremiah. Afu b'chayim, so too Yaakov is alive. Umakshim kan, so too they make the connection here. Shelo teretz lo klum, al v'chi b'ktei chanat, right? I'm sorry, maybe. This doesn't really answer anything by the fact that he was embalmed. The real answer is like this. Anybody who leaves over children is doime kilu eno meis. When you leave over children, it's as if you never died. Why is that? Because the fetus, in this case we're talking about obviously afterwards the child, is just considered a limb of the parent. So the parent will continue to live through the child, through the limb. The kare the abu, and it actually becomes like a companion of the father or the parents. The chelik minaav klulu baben, and therefore we're talking about a portion of the child is living within the. A portion of the father is alive within the child. Kshaben b'chayim as hu gam chelik min oviv haklul bo b'chayim. So when the son is alive, then he's also like a portion of the father who's included in this life. And now, why is it by Yaakov? Why do we learn this by Yaakov? Sheko mitato shlema, that his entire bed, every one of his children were considered tzaddikim and kosher. As it says in the Medrash. Kol hamamid ben tzaddik, anybody who establishes a child who's righteous, ki'ilu eno meis, that parent is never considered dead. Dafka ben tzaddik. That's if you have a child who's a tzaddik. Aval ben rasha, but if God forbid the son is evil, hachashu b'chayav kamet. So then, even in his own lifetime, he's considered dead. In other words, evil people, while they're alive, are considered dead. Righteous people, when they're dead, are considered alive. And there's a verse in Isaiah chapter 31, verse 3, that the helper will stumble and the help will fall. Kashalo izer v'nafel azur. Ein bora kazeh mezaki abba. So the son, who's let's say is evil, is not going to help or benefit the father in any way. Lefikach amru dafka Yaakov lo meis. Therefore, they say specifically it was Yaakov who never died. Alpha pisha chanatu chanatia. Even though he was mummified and embalmed. Nevertheless, when his children are alive, as gam hu chelik mimena b'chaim, so a portion of Yaakov is still alive. And this is the hint when it talks about the children of Yaakov being fruitful and multiplying. Right away, the next two words are, and Yaakov lived. Through this great multiplication, that's how the tzaddik stays alive. Therefore we see. So what do I sum this up at the end? I want to wish everyone a fantastic Shabbos and a great coming year. That we should, what should we do? We should learn more Torah, right? That to see Mashas, the crowd was alive. That Torah is the tree of life. We want to really, so listen, there's no guarantee with our children, even if we had, like, let's say even the mitzvah to have children. People try. As long as you try, you get credit, okay? So, but now.
I tried, I didn't succeed.
Okay.
I'm off.
So what happens now? You have children. You have to do your best. Do the best you can. And I think the best way is being a role model, right? You have a Torah home. You join a good shul, right? You treat your wife with respect. What can go wrong, man? If the kid goes through puberty and has some issues, eventually he'll come around because you set an example. That's all you can do. And pray a lot. A lot of prayer and whatever you can do at home. This is my words of advice, and I hope my kids are watching this, and I love every one of you. So Shabbat Shalom.